There had never been a time when the office of Spencer Publications was so silent. Bill Spencer's longtime confidant and legal advisor, Justin Barber, was sitting in his chair and gazed out the enormous windows that overlooked Los Angeles. They were looking out at the city. A distinct kind of anxiety was building up within the confines of the office, despite the fact that the city was bustling with activity below her. Since Justin had deceived Bill and attempted to take control of the company while Bill and his son, Liam, were in legal difficulty, it had been several months since the fact that Justin had done this. Although Bill had finally forgiven Justin, things had never fully back to normal. The plan had failed, and although Justin had eventually forgiven Bill, the trust that they had once shared had been broken, and as a result, there was a noticeable gap connecting them at this point. On the other hand, Justin had conceded and accepted it, so he believed it to be. Odd occurrences have been taking place in his immediate vicinity as of late. A string of unexplained occurrences, reports of mysterious deaths tied to influential persons in Los Angeles, and the strong impression that someone or something was keeping an eye on him all contributed to his situation. Justin made an effort to dismiss it as paranoid, yet the nagging sensation that he was caught up in something that was far greater than he recognized would not go away. The passing of a seemingly insignificant man, a real estate developer working on a small scale who had come into contact with Bill Spencer over a property transaction, was the catalyst for everything that transpired. It was determined that the man had died of what seemed to be a heart attack in his residence. There were rumors going around the city that suggested differently. Although there were no indications of any kind of criminal activity, the timing and the circumstances appeared to be too convenient. A young attorney who had been working on a case against Spencer Publications was killed in an automobile accident. The accident occurred where the young lawyer was working on the case. They referred to it as a freak accident, but Justin was aware of the situation. The driver was far too cautious and diligent to just lose control of his vehicle while driving along a route that was straight. As each of these occurrences continued to accumulate, Justin was unable to shake the impression that they were bound together. And even worse, the possibility that someone is attempting to frame him. The fact that Bill Spencer was not a man to be trifled with was something that Justin was more aware of than anybody else. However, despite the fact that they had worked together in the past, Justin couldn't help but feel a trace of bitterness toward his colleague and former buddy. After all, he had spent a significant portion of his life tending to Bill, cleaning up his messes, and shielding him from the repercussions of his merciless choices. And what was the result of his actions? When he had attempted to take what he believed he earned, he was stabbed in the back with a knife. Justin was plagued by the recollection of that betrayal, which fueled his suspicion that Bill might be engaged in some way in the bizarre things that were taking on around him. However, the component of him that was sensible rejected the idea. However, despite his many traits, including being competitive, ambitious, and even downright vicious at times, Bill was not a murderer. To put it another way, not in the conventional sense. In spite of this, the coincidences were obvious enough to be ignored, and as Justin continued to reflect about the matter, he became increasingly aware of the fact that he was not the only person who might have a reason to support the elimination of Bill Spencer. A great number of people in Los Angeles held a grudge against the publishing magnate, and they were determined to have their revenge. One of them might be responsible for the fatalities, right? Also, assuming that is the case, why did they target individuals who were associated with Spencer Publications? It was during a late-night conversation with an old acquaintance, someone who had formerly toiled in the shadows of the city's elite, that Justin was able to discover the solution. Someone who was aware of things and who saw things that others did not see. Despite the fact that the man's comments were obscure, the message was easy to understand. Somebody was cleaning the house, removing any obstructions, and the next person to be targeted was Bill Spencer. The weeks that followed were a haze of anxiety and paranoia for everyone involved. Justin started to perceive danger in every nook and cranny of the Spencer building, including in the eyes of passers-by on the street and in the shadowy corners of the building. He was aware that he was being observed, but he was unsure of who was doing so. Whenever he attempted to conduct an investigation, he was met with a dead end. It was either that the folks he spoke to were ignorant of anything or that they were too terrified to speak up. Although Bill appeared to be the only one who could provide any answers, Justin was unable to muster the courage to inquire about it. They were unable to sustain another hit because their relationship was already so stressed and fragile. In addition, what if Bill was involved in this? What if this was some kind of devious plot to coerce Justin into coming out as a form of retribution for his treachery? Justin's performance began to deteriorate as the amount of pressure increased. In addition to being increasingly paranoid, he got irritable with his coworkers and skipped meetings. A fog of fear and mistrust began to obscure his previously bright mind, and he began to perceive adversaries in every corner of the world. It appeared as though Wyatt and Liam, who had always shown him respect, had become aloof from him as a result of his acts, which had caused their faith in him to diminish. Justin then received a text message from an unknown number as he was leaving the office one evening. The message was sent to him via the phone. There was a brief but disturbing warning that said, "You are next." The temperature of Justin's blood dropped. He was well aware that he could not go to the authorities since there was already too much at stake and too many secrets that could be revealed. Only he could manage this situation on his own. If so, how? Instead of being a detective, he was a lawyer. He was aware of the fact that he was in over his head. It was his desperation that prompted him to take such extreme actions. He started making inquiries into the lives of the individuals who had passed away, looking for connections to Bill, to Spencer Publications, and to himself respectively. The discovery that he made stuns him. Every single one of the victims had been involved in different transactions or litigation that had in some way posed a danger to Bill's business. And in every instance, Justin had been the one to deal with the legal repercussions of the situation. Like a ton of bricks, the understanding struck him in the face. Someone was trying to frame him, making it appear as though he was cleaning up Bill's mess in the most permanent way possible. In addition, whoever it was, they were doing an excellent job at it. Justin made the decision to face Bill because he realized that he could no longer take the weight of his suspicions. In order to determine whether or not his longtime friend was participating in this twisted game, he needed to know whether or not they were both being played by someone else. Despite the fact that the idea of confronting Bill was intimidating, Justin was aware that it was the only way to discover the truth. During the late hours of the night, when they would not be disturbed, he planned for them to meet at Bill's residence. As Justin drove through the nighttime streets of Los Angeles, his mind was racing with the various possibilities that were ahead of him. What if Bill was the one who was responsible for everything? Could it be that this is a trap? Despite his best efforts, the thoughts clung to him and wrapped themselves around his mind like a vice. He tried to push them away. As soon as he arrived at Bill's estate, the hostility that existed between them was immediately apparent. Bill gave him a suspicious look as he greeted him, plainly recognizing that something was not quite right. As they sat in the living room, the atmosphere was thick with words that were not spoken. What exactly is this all about, Justin? The tone of Bill's question was reserved. As he attempted to settle himself, Justin took a deep breath. "Bill, tell me the truth. I need to know it. It is about the deaths." Referring to the accidents, "Are you on board with it?" With a flicker of wrath crossing his face, Bill's eyes focused in concentration. "What the hell are you having this conversation about?" Justin did not attempt to retreat. The individuals who are related to Spencer Publications are the focus of an attack. Those individuals who have wronged you and people who have threatened your company. And I am being positioned to take the blame for this. Bill fixed his gaze on him, his expression being indecipherable. A moment of quiet between them was so intense that it was deafening. After that, Bill gave a slow shake of his head. "Are you seriously convinced that I would act in such a manner?" he inquired, his tone of voice icy. "You believe that I would kill people and frame you in order to protect my business, don't you?" To put it simply, Justin was at a loss for words. The idea that Bill was innocent and that they were both being fooled was something that he had longed to believe. But the uncertainty that he had in his head would not go away. The confession that Justin made was, "I don't know what to think anymore. However, I need to know whether or not you are involved." His gaze became more resolute, I'm not a murderer, Justin, I said, and I am not against this at all. On the other hand, if there is someone who is targeting people who are connected to me, then we need to look into who it is. Collectively, what he heard took Justin by surprise. In contrast to what he had anticipated, which was rage and possibly even violence, Bill was volunteering to assist him. It was a ray of light in the midst of the darkness, and Justin clutched to it with all his might. Are you able to speculate on who it might come from? The tone of Justin's voice was tinged with desperation as he asked. Bill sat back in his chair and continued to think while he did so. There are a great number of individuals who possess a strong desire to see me eliminated. People who are competitors, enemies, and even people with whom I have done business. This, however, has a very personal feel about it. Justin gave a slight nod, all the while experiencing a growing sensation of dread. Regardless of who was responsible for this, neither Bill nor either of them were the only targets of their pursuit. In addition, they would not stop until they had completely obliterated everything. The investigation into the enigma was furthered by Justin with the assistance of Bill. Over the course of the investigation, they went over past business dealings, looked over court cases, and investigated every aspect of the current fatalities. Over time, a pattern started to become apparent. Individuals who were victims were not simply random persons who were related to Spencer Publications. Rather, they were all tied to a single influential personality in the Los Angeles area, and someone who had been one of Bill's closest supporters in the past, but who had turned against him in a bitter fight that occurred many years ago. It was known that he was a vicious businessman by the name of Vincent Walker, who had a reputation for being dishonest. For many years, he had served as Bill's right-hand man, assisting him in the establishment of his empire. However, their collaboration had come to an abrupt and spectacular end, and Vincent had expressed his intention to take Bill with him.